Hi friends. Do me a quick favor and let's pretend like it hasn't been 10 years since I last recorded a video. And also, let's just ignore the fact that my appearance has changed slightly. Anyway, so these first three books, I don't have dates for when I finished them, but it's been a hot minute. So as I'm reading my notes, I'll be discovering the book right alongside you because my memory is crap and I can't remember things past a week ago. Heaven's sake, I can't forget. I can't even remember what I did yesterday. So here we go. The woods are always watching. Ooh, spooky, spooky. Two friends decide to do a several-day hiking and camping excursion before one of them is going off to college across the country, and they want to try to keep the friendship going even though it's really on its last legs. It's going well at first until one of them falls into a big hole and breaks her ankle. The other one runs to the car to try and get help but ends up getting lost. And then the two of them are found by these crazy backwoods hicks who are going to do horrible things to them until Chekhov's bear shows up and saves them. Well, it doesn't save them, but like it's not like it went out of its way like, oh, I'm gonna be the hero of this story. No, it just shows up, attacks the two dudes, and the two girls are able to escape. Hooray! I love me a good thriller, but I don't super love that, reading my thing here, don't mind me. I don't love it too much when the big baddies explicitly tell our protagonist, hey, we're gonna do these horrible things to you. We're telling you to your face that we're gonna do it. It kind of ruins the suspense a bit, you know? As crazy as that sounds. It ruins the suspense when you're told what's gonna happen. Like, I guess it's good for, like, getting us into the protagonist mindset of, like, oh, this is really horrible, but, like, you don't need to be explicit about it. I was honestly hoping more for, like, with a cover like this, I was expecting more for, like, cryptid, the woods are unknown, uncharted territory, because it takes place in, like, Appalachia, I want to say. The Pisgah National Forest, wherever that is. But no, we just get crazy hillbillies who want to do evil things. Plus, we got these random flashbacks for the antagonists while they're attacking the girls. And it's like, I don't need to know this. I don't want to be leaning anywhere towards like, oh, sympathy for their hard childhood. I don't need that. Just say they're antagonistic towards the protagonist. And yeah, no, I hate them. I don't need to know exactly why they're doing this. I think it'd be interesting for like a person who is an experienced outdoorsman to read this because I'm in the same boat as the protagonist in that I have no idea how to do like backpacking and hiking and camping and all that jazz. So I would just want someone who knows what they're supposed to do it, you know, like if you fell in a hole and broke your ankle, what would you do? Anyway, so these next ones are two Titanic historical fiction because I can never get enough of it. First one we're going to talk about is Titanic: The Long Night. This one has a sequel. I have it on my wish list. I haven't ordered it yet, but I don't know if I will just because this book was just kind of meh. It's a YA novel, follows two different girls. One of them is third class, of course, who is traveling with two of her guy friends, one of which becomes her boyfriend, and the other one is a first class. The first class girl meets the prodigal son of this really big, rich, important family, and the whole premise of the book is you're going in with this cover, and you're like, okay, well, these couples make it. That's the pressure of it. But yeah, they all make it. Spoiler alert, the one of the third class guys, he dies, but everyone else is fine. Everyone else. It was just, I don't know if you know this, but the sinking of the Titanic, one person died. The older brother. Just a third class dude, just him. No one else. We're all good. No, but there's a fake out death of the first class prodigal son guy, but he survives, of course, and they all make it, which... One element I really liked about the book is that Elizabeth, who's from first class, at one point, she is brought down to tour the third class living situation, and she sees Katie, the third class girl, and she sees her, and then over the course of the next few days, she's like, oh, there's that third class girl again, and Katie's like, anyway, my boyfriend and I, it's whatever. And like, they don't actually ever formally meet until the very end when they're on the same lifeboat, But it's just funny that that's like a running thing, that Elizabeth is always like, oh, there she is. And Katie's like, where's my boy? But with like an Irish accent, which I can't really do. Where's my boy? Nope. A bit of a complaint with this book that I've noticed with a lot of my Titanic books, because I'm fairly well versed at this point. They mainly focus on the first class passengers, which makes sense because they're the famous people, they're the people that we know, and they're the majority of the people that survived. So we have their witness accounts and everything. But you know, give me some third class rep. Give me some second class. You never hear anything about second class. And as always with Titanic books, a good portion of the book is taken up with the actual sinking of itself. But it's like, if you know anything about the Titanic, it's that it sinks. That's what happens. So then the tension comes from, oh, are these people going to survive? But it's like they pretty quickly get to a boat. So it's like, wow. And there's 30 more pages of this. Nice. Anyway, next one. Titanic Murders. Interestingly, this one takes place entirely before the sinking. Like the very last page, it's like, oh, and then I felt a shudder. And like, that's how it ends. So it's like the Titanic is just a setting. It's not, the sinking isn't like the major conflict or anything, which is different, and I like that. But yeah, the premise of this one is, what if people were killed on the boat beforehand? And so it's like a classic whodunit, as you're like trying to figure, it's just a mystery set on the Titanic. That's really it. So it's an interesting Titanic story in that the tension and the conflict is completely divorced from the sinking. It's its own separate story. But of course, all of our first class passengers make a cameo, and of course they're all actually suspects in the murder itself. You got Astor, Guggenheim, freaking Molly Brown is one of the suspects. Like, of course she shows up. It ended up being the nanny who killed the guy, which I didn't see coming because I can't guess. I'm not good at guessing. I read Encyclopedia Brown books when I was a kid, and I would flip to the back of that book so quick because I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. But yeah, it ended up being a nanny who killed the guy because he was threatening to blackmail her, and then the second guy was killed by a friend of hers because he was an accomplice to the guy trying to blackmail. Yes. So the premise itself is fictional. There's no evidence of anyone being killed on the Titanic, but you know, interesting. Did you know there are morgues on cruise ships? I mean, I read this online, so it must be true, but like there are like morgues where like they store, like it's refrigerated to store dead bodies on cruise ships in case people die. But that poor steward who has to come over and take care of that. Yeesh. But like I said, we don't actually deal with the sinking. It just kind of like ends with it like, oh, and the sinking is about to happen. And then there's an epilogue that shows like what happens to each person, like each of the real people, that Astor, Guggenheim, all those dudes. Plus the narrator was an actual fiction writer, like a mystery fiction writer at the time, so that's pretty cool. Plus, the book has an appendix of like documentaries, movies, books, everything that the author used as a reference. So at the very least, I now have a nice curated list of more Titanic media to take in. I'm sure Darius will love that. All right. This one. This is the book that I just finished most recently, just a couple days ago. Let's talk about it. Our protagonist is living an interesting life, a polygamous marriage with 2 sister wives she knows nothing about, not even their names, only referring to them as Monday and Tuesday, the days her husband Seth spends with them while she is Thursday. By chance, she learns the name and address of the third wife, and she decides to go meet her. This third wife is pregnant, and our protagonist notices some bruises on her, and she's worried that their husband is being abusive towards her. So our protagonist has to go find the first wife, Regina, to learn some more. As she learns more about Seth and the other wives, our protagonist has to now confront Seth about all that she's learned. The confrontation turns physical, she gets knocked out and wakes up in a mental ward. We'll learn that her actual name is Thursday, and that Seth has told everyone, her parents, her doctors, everyone, that she is mentally ill, and he has no idea what she is talking about their marriage. Upon Thursday's release, she reaches out to Hannah and Regina to try and prove herself right and to learn more about Hannah, making sure that she is safe regarding Seth's abusive past. Regina reveals that she and Seth actually had a divorce because Thursday was having an affair with him, and then continued that affair into his marriage with Hannah. Thursday was only ever the mistress. Cornered at Hannah and Seth's house with the truth coming out, Thursday shoots Seth, and then we cut to a year later. Thursday is, of course, found guilty, but is let off easy with a plea of insanity, and she is serving her sentence in the mental ward that she was at before. And Seth has become paralyzed. He did survive, but he is paralyzed. Regina comes to visit, and they have a final confrontation. The book ends with Thursday attacking Regina, trying to kill her. We love it. Okay, so I figured out my deal with unreliable narrators. If both the narrator and us as the reader are coming up to new information and they lead us towards a misinterpretation because they're the narrator and we have to trust them, I like that. But if they're straight up lying to us, I don't like that, because I like to be able to trust the book that I read. I don't like to be explicitly lied to. I know, crazy. I did like that when Thursday is being confronted with her delusions, she remains steadfast. So there's like a glimmer of hope that it's Seth who's the big liar here, but no, it's her all along, and we're the sucker for playing along with that. But yeah, after the big showdown where she shoots Seth, there's this pages upon pages of her having a conversation with her therapist, and it's like, yep, everything we thought was real about this character, about the situation, is false. Yep, you were lied to, deal with it. And I'm just not a fan. And the reason for the polygamy is that Seth is from Utah, and that's it. There's no, like, elaboration about, like, how he was raised. It just says, like, oh, he's from Utah and he has a big family. And that's all we need to know. And, you know, I get that. And then plus there's this whole demonization of mental illness, and I just don't vibe with that. You know, people have stuff wrong with them, and therefore that immediately makes them violent. Pass. Anyway, so that's all that I've read thus far. Here it is. I was reading this book, The Oldest Profession. It's about a history of prostitution. I was enjoying it. It was okay. It was written in 1960, and it's translated from the German, so the language is a little stilted, it's a little outdated, and I just didn't finish it. And I am currently reading a book about the 6 wives of Henry VIII, and I'm really enjoying it. It has a lot of excerpts from like their letters and stuff that they wrote at the time, so a lot of primary sources, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting because really my only knowledge of it was, do I have that book? It's in the garage somewhere. It's like a children's history book of like these crazy things all throughout history, and it had like a page and a half about Henry VIII, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then of course 6, the musical, which doesn't deserve best score in my opinion at the Tonys, but costumes it can get. Lighting, love it. Score, it's good, but it's not best score, you know? Anyway, next book. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I haven't read this one in a hot minute. You know, I started reading it in high school. I don't think I ever actually finished it. All I remember about when I tried to read it last time is there's a pun in it where the narrator is looking for the guy, and he says, if he be Mr. Hyde, then I will be Mr. Seek. And I thought that was so funny. And I think it was so funny that I put the book down and never picked it up again. Yeah. Bye. Our protagonist is living an interesting life. Our protagonist is living an interesting life. Words are hard. Our protagonist is living an interesting life. A polygamous marriage. I say it and then I just completely blank on what's next. Our protagonist is living an interesting life. A Yeah, do you agree? Do you agree? He gets me. Our protagonist is living an interesting life. A polygamist marriage. You'd think living in Utah, I could say polygamist.